Alright, what's up everybody? This video we're checking out the new Alucard, or True Dracula, Restriction 0. This is the only Halloween unit we haven't checked out yet in Anime Last Stand as of the new Halloween update. But he is from the Abyssal Trial, so he's the most grindy one. It took a while. Thank you to eboyk, or Chadwick, for showcasing this one. We have triple S everything, level 85, maxed out critical skill tree, no godly lead, no soul, and then of course glitch and glorious trait and enchant there. Here is the cosmetic, by the way. He's wearing that, looks pretty cool. But getting into the Alucard showcase here, how this guy works is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to kind of have a long showcase video because he has 4 different restriction levels. We have 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. We're going to start before activating the ability. But vampiric tendencies. Whenever 20 plus enemies are under dismantled, which he does have right here on placement, he is also hybrid line AoE. He is going to permanently apply dismantle to all enemies in range, and ticks are going to scale off his current damage and update when his damage updates. Enemies under dismantled in his range are going to take extra damage from all bleed type dots, they're going to be stunned by his attacks, they're going to be slowed down by 15%. He seems like a pretty good debuffer, or support unit there, but again this is only the first passive before we even activate the restriction levels here. But checking out the upgrades, thank you again Chadwick. He has Rupture, no not Rupture, Mutilate and Dismantled on placement. Upgrade 4 we gain Hypnosis, which is a new ability, and upon activation select a unit in range to control. True Dracula can control unlimited units, but only once per unit. If the target unit SPA is higher than his, he's going to reduce their SPA and make them lose damage to the target. So he's like a follow-up attacker and makes them attack faster. So this is like a control thing, you choose a unit, I'm guessing kind of like the mob ability of like the units turn green, you click on one, and you can kind of buff or debuff them. So I'll keep you on the upgrades here. He gains a new attack on upgrade 8, he gets the blood shots there. He is still a line AoE. And new animation on that though. Upgrade 3 he did get a new attack, Bloody Assault, which I did not call out. But maxing out with Death River ability here, upgrade 11. Not sure when he unlocks that, maybe when he reaches restriction 0 or something. But right now, pretty sure his AoE never changed from line AoE. But he is doing 2.3 bill every 8.33 seconds with the dismantled and mutilate effects there, so pretty good damage. Now of course we do have restriction levels to check out. So the first one, I think we can already get away with that. I'm pretty sure he's met the requirement of, yeah, restriction level 3, here we go. He is going to gain that 10% range. It does kind of tack on to his normal amount as a buff. And the passive here, Hemokinesis. Okay, so enemies under bleed are applied to rupture by his attacks, and enemies under rupture take 15% more damage from all bleed type dots, so another bleed buffer, and 20% more damage from fire and dark element units. Okay, he is a dark unit himself, so I'm wondering if he will actually do more damage. He probably will. And this is the restriction level 3 again, but he's also going to have fear during the duration of the rupture. So pretty much for restriction level 3, we unlocked rupture, we unlocked more bleed buffing, more fire and dark buffing, and then fear on top of rupture. And he does actually have pretty good SPA for rupture because he has 8.33, and rupture is a 14-second dot, so every 2 attacks he'll be reapplying it. Pretty good damage there. And eventually we'll be ready for restriction level 2, I think. Moving on to the next restriction level 2. This one was kind of weird because the requirement is just having units with rupture, or enemies with rupture in his range, but you actually have to bring a unit with rupture. His own rupture from like the old restriction level 3 passive didn't work. You have to actually use like guts with him. We brought guts and it worked, so restriction level 2. He's going to gain 10% range, you can see 20% now, so it stacks with the previous restriction level. And then he also has the third eye passive, which let's take a look at that real quick. The third eye passive, enemies under weakened in range are applied hemorrhage based on True Dracula's current damage. And then enemies under hemorrhage take more damage from all bleed, more damage from fire and dark, so same buff as the restriction level 3 passive. And then he has despair for the duration of hemorrhage, so he's going to be now applying hemorrhage and now applying despair during the hemorrhage. That is the restriction level 2. And it looks like that did get rid of his restriction level 3 passive of hemostasis or whatever, hemokinesis. Now the next requirement for restriction level 1, which we should be ready for apparently, that is going to require landing a crit 6 times against an enemy with despair. So to meet that requirement, you need either weakened, hemorrhage, or despair in some way, because he can apply despair himself if you have hemorrhage or weakened. Otherwise you need despair. But we should have the requirement. We're going to move on to restriction level 1. Getting into restriction level 1, the second to last restriction level, looks like he is gaining 15% more range on top of the buffs he already had. So from restriction 2 and restriction 3, he had a total of 20%, now he has a total of 35. The Soul Absorption passive. On critting an enemy with Mutilate, apply Weakened. The enemy is on Weakened cooldown, guarantee a crit on True Dracula's next attack against this enemy, and deal 6% current HP, cap of 66 billion. 6-second local cooldown, requires restriction level 1. Okay, so he has access to a percent base damage, 6% current HP with a cap of 66 bill, and 6-second local cooldown. They're really going all out with the theme of the evil number here. Like, he now has access to Weakened, which is pretty nice on his own. Now, sadly, because we got Restriction 1, he lost access to his Restriction 2 passive of, like, applying Despair is something that has Weakened, or applying Hemorrhage and then Despair is something that has Weakened. But he is a pretty good support now, I think. Anyways, the final requirement, Restriction level 0, we need to do 666 billion total damage. Take a look here at his total damage. He's done well over that. We've got like 800 trillion. Okay, perfect. Should be able to check out the final restriction. Restriction level 0. Here we go. Maxed out potential Alucard. Restriction level 0. 0 out of 4 restriction level. He is going to gain 25% more range. So a total of now, I feel like he had 35 before. And now he's got 25 on top of that. Should be 60, but looks like 50 for some reason. So one of these is 10% off. Maybe he loses access to like the restriction 3 or something. I don't know. Either way, he has a 50% range buff now. And the Baskerville passive and the Death River ability when fully maxed out. First we'll check out the passive. So Baskerville. Every 66 seconds or 6 crits, whichever comes first, he's going to deal 10 times his damage in range and instantly explode all rupture. Deal full 5.4 times damage immediately. Remove all bleed stacks from the enemy. For every stack removed, gain plus 2% crit damage in the next attack. And then all enemies with a bleed type dot are inflicted with Bloodlust, which I think the only unit with that is Maka from the tournament. And it's just going to make them take more bleed damage, I think. More damage from bleed sources. So I guess periodically he's doing like a mini nuke thing. He's going to have a way of detonating Rupture and also removing bleed, which kind of means you have to run him with another bleed unit, I think. Does he still have access to the other passives though? I don't know, it looks like he might have access to the different restriction passives, even though he is now restriction 0, they stop showing up. But I think he has access to restriction level 1, 2, 3, maybe. Anyways, we're ready for the Death River. Let's go on to 1x speed here for that. I didn't have the ability disabled, but there's no cutscene, I guess, for the Death River. Which is really unfortunate because it's a really, like, cool ability, I think. 10 trillion damage and apply Mutilate based on the multiplier. Instantly kill all enemies under 20% HP and give all Hypnosis affected units a random effect for 20 seconds. So, I was really waiting for the effect there. I thought it would have an animation, but it doesn't. It's going to do a pretty strong nuke, is going to apply Mutilate based off that strong multiplier, and then auto-execute enemies below 20%, and buff the Hypnosis affected units, which is going to be, I guess the Hypnosis is going to be like an infinite thing he can do. So pretty interesting there. He's weirdly like kind of a buffer for bleed, and also just kind of like for everything with Hypnosis maybe, depending on the unit. But I do want to check him out with like Griffith buff, for example. I'm going to get that down and sacrifice the light mode. Overall, he's pretty okay. Max out damage of 2.3 bill every 8.33. But, I don't know, he's very, like, impractical to actually use to get the different restriction levels in an actual game. We had to go up into an infinite to wave 135, as you can see. It took a while. I mean, he's pretty good, he's pretty okay. With Griffith buff and Idol buff, he's doing 3.91 bill every 8.33. Not bad. Thank you to eboyk, again, showcasing this one. Very appreciated, man. I did not grind for the unit myself because I was busy doing something silly in Infinite, which should be my next video. I'm just giving you guys a little hint at my next video, hopefully. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Worth the grind? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, depends on what you want to run. On a bleed team is pretty good. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.